Welcome, everyone. In today's rapidly advancing world of AI, we often celebrate the achievements, the technological achievements, without really considering who's left behind. So, Dr. Rosemary is going to explore in her lecture today the critical need to go beyond mere representation and how we can truly centralize marginalized voices in AI design. Today, Dr. Rosemary Gyening is a lecturer at the Department of Computer Science at Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, KNUST in Ghana. She holds a PhD in computer science from the same institution. She is a researcher with over 7 years of experience, not only in university level teaching and researching, but also supervising and mentoring at the undergraduate and postgraduate stages. Dr. Rosemary is also a team member in one of the AI for projects, the Rapid VBP UST, Responsible AI for Developing Robust Public Health Surveillance System for early detection and prediction of vector-borne viral zoonotic pathogens. Today, she's particularly interested in using AI to solve societal problems, especially technological solutions for people with special needs and underserved populations.
Hi, everyone. From Ghana, it is a good afternoon, but wherever you are, maybe I'll be okay to say good day or good evening. It's an exciting time to be here with you virtually to discuss and deliberate on this very important topic. So for today, we'll be looking at how do we go beyond representation to center marginalized voices in AI design. So from the quiz, I guess most of us got to know that AI stands for artificial intelligence. Now, before I start, I would like to just show this image, and then maybe just one person would give me a summary of what he or she sees or thinks about the image. So anyone, you could just put up your hand and then respond. If you look at the image, what comes to mind?
Hello, good afternoon,
Good
everyone.
afternoon.
My name is Olivia from Ghana. And for what I can see the AI and AI being in the center of a group of people, more or less like the world. That's what I can see. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Olivia. Any other?
Mahak.
Thank you. I was just going to share, in addition to what Olivia saw, I also see like a just diversity of people from all walks of life kind of having the opportunity to interact with AI.
Thanks so much. So people around AI and also diversity. Thank you very much for your contribution. Okay. So what do we expect today? At the end of the lecture, we are hoping that we will all get to appreciate the importance of centering marginalized voices in AI design. And we are going to use case studies, examples, and real-world issues to justify why there's a need to critically look at this very important topic. So this is the outline of the presentation in a snapshot, an overview of AI design, and then understanding marginalization. From the quiz, we realized that people had different ideas about what marginalization is all about. And I'm hoping that at the end of this lecture, it's going to be clear to everyone. And we will look at what has been done so far with respect to representation of marginalized voices, and then some case studies that will help us to appreciate what is really happening on the ground. Of course, we would look at the difference between representing and centering, and then how to deal with bias, and we'll end on a beautiful note, hopefully. So let's zoom in right into action. Now, for most of us, we have heard about artificial intelligence. And basically, it's just the science and engineering of making intelligent machines or software. So basically, we are just trying to let machines or softwares mimic human intelligence, or getting computers or computing devices to think and act like human beings. So then, what is AI design? So we see two words here, AI and design. AI design is a process which involves a number of activities from creating AI systems, implementing the systems, evaluating the systems, and also feeding back the input or the results that people generate back into the system for modification when necessary. So I would say that in AI design, it goes through a cycle. And with a cycle, it doesn't end. We get to a point, and then the cycle would have to repeat. Now, very critical in AI design is problem identification. So if there's no problem, then there's no need to solve anything. So we identify a problem, and then more often we try to collect some data. If there's data already existing, we will need to check whether it's up to date or not. And then when necessary, augment the data. And then we run the data through a number of algorithms to come up with a proposed solution. Now, currently, we are more interested in not just developing any artificial intelligence solutions, but ones that are efficient. So using the minimum amount of resources. We all understand the dramatic changes in climate that we experience these days. So we want resources that are not going to further deplete the already existing frameworks or resources that we have around. But we want AI solutions that are efficient using the most minimum amount of resources. We want solutions that are effective, solutions that do what they are supposed to do. And of course, more importantly, we want solutions that are ethical. So it's not just about doing anything, but are the solutions that we are coming up with ethical to be able to serve the needs of diverse populations and not infringe on the rights of people. Now, when we look around us, we have so many AI technologies. And there's also a whole lot of discussions boiling around marginalization. So then the question is, how is AI related to marginalization, or how can artificial intelligence contribute to the issue of marginalization? Now, to appreciate this perspective, we need to understand what marginalization is all about. So we are looking at a situation where certain groups are pushed to the edges of society, or certain groups are excluded from benefiting from things that should be basic to them. So their rights may be infringed upon, they may not get certain opportunities, and some resources may not also be available to them. Now, which groups of people would fall under marginalized communities? Marginalization can affect anyone. It can be due to your race, your gender. It can be due to your socioeconomic status, maybe a disability or a special need. Marginalization can also result due to religious beliefs, and then other factors that we don't even consider to be key with respect to marginalization. So, what groups of people can fall into this marginalized group? Now, we have women. Most of the time, we hear a lot of discussions around women and marginalization. But it's not only women, men can also be marginalized depending on the environment. And people who identify with certain genders could also be marginalized. And then people of color. Now, when we talk about people of color, then the basic definition will be people who are not whites. And there are times that these people are marginalized. We even have instances where people who are whites are also marginalized based on certain criteria, like their disabilities or special needs, the socioeconomic status of a person, even the age. So someone can be marginalized just because of the age and nothing else, or the religious affiliation. So the issue of marginalization is one that can affect everyone. It doesn't have to be because someone is a male or someone is a female or someone has special needs and then the other doesn't have. We can all be marginalized in one way or the other, depending on the circumstances that we find ourselves in. Now, although when you read the news and you listen to ongoing discussions, there's a lot that are being said on the marginalization that is coming up more strongly in the age of artificial intelligence. But we cannot also downplay the fact that a lot of research has been conducted in this area. So attempts have been made to collect data from diverse regions and instances. There are instances where people from the communities have been made to lead certain research. Ethical frameworks have also been proposed. So in my university, if you want to conduct a research, you would have to apply to the Committee of Ethics. They'll go through your proposal and ensure that your proposal for the project is one that is not going to infringe on any rights and it would adhere to standard research protocols. So these frameworks are existing. We also have media coverage talking about the wonderful things that AI is doing with respect to helping to eradicate marginalization. And then even some special funding opportunities for people in marginalized areas. So we would applaud the efforts that have been made in this area, but there's still that can be done. So marginalization is resulting in bias. And I think bias is a common term that we use a lot in our daily lives. But when it comes to artificial intelligence, we realize that the biases that are in our lives are gradually moving into the AI systems that we develop. So I can say that the AI biases that we are seeing now reflect the human biases. So I'm going to give some scenarios that will help us to appreciate what we mean by these biases. So the AI is not intelligent without some data to feed on or without something to learn from. So what we are feeding the AI is what is also producing and learning from. So if we are feeding it with biases from the human environment, definitely it's going to learn that and reproduce that. So when we come to the field of AI, we find biases in the data, the algorithms that we use, and even the predictions or the results that come out of these algorithms. So I was reading the news articles from different websites. Some of them actually caught my attention and I decided to share with you all. So the first one is on AI's climate impacts. may hit marginalized people hardest. So this is related to climate, AI, and then marginalization. The second one, it's a scenario in the banking sector where people are being discriminated upon because of maybe their socioeconomic status, and it could even be where they live, where they live. If you come to my country, there are instances where people may judge you according to the area that you live, and that may not always be a fair judgment. And it's also interesting to note that although AI is trying to help with dealing with the issues that people who are specially abled or disabled face, AI could also worsen their situation. So there's this particular article I read where people who have special needs are getting into trouble for using AI as assistive technologies. So such instances will draw our attention to the fact that although things are being done, there's still more that could be implemented to help us to deal with the issues that arise with AI usage. So still on case studies of marginalization in AI. Now, in some healthcare systems, we realize that because of the data that was used to train machine learning models, computer-aided diagnosis systems, some are returning lower accuracy results for Black patients than whites. It's not the fault of the algorithm, it's the data that was fed. And then application tracking systems. So these days, no one has time to go through thousands of CVs to select the right candidate. We find a lot of the companies relying on softwares. These softwares are known as application tracking systems, and they try to pick out the best candidates based on certain keywords. So there was a case study where Amazon stopped using a hiring algorithm because it favored applicants who use words like executed and captured. And it's interesting to note that these words were mostly found on the CVs of men. So women were in a way marginalized because of the certain keywords that the application tracking system used. I remember also reading a news article where someone said he was never called for a job interview until he changed his surname. That could be something that is debatable. We may not know what actually went on, but these are genuine instances where people think that they are not being treated fairly because of the algorithms that are being used. Some people even say that they feel AI is moving too fast, that human beings are in a hurry to offload our responsibilities to artificial intelligence. But I think that if we do things right, we will have a situation where artificial intelligence is going to augment our efforts, and we are going to work smarter and save a lot of time. There are also instances in online adverts where there are issues of biases in the search engine, where jobs, for instance, with high paying opportunities may be displayed to certain groups of people. So there was an instance where research revealed that Google's online advertising system displayed high paying jobs to males more than to women. So these are research that people have conducted, and there's more to it. It could be true, it may not be true, but they have brought out their data. So if people want to counter, then we also need research to be able to do that. And then one very serious scenario where it can get really worrying is in predictive policing AI tools. So where some companies are using AI in their criminal justice system, and people are being identified as criminals when they are not, or people who are actually the criminals are left because the system could not detect them, or people who are being treated unfairly because of some historical arrest data. So indeed, research helps us to appreciate that although AI is doing a lot, there's still more that can be done with respect to dealing with marginalized communities. So sometimes when we think about marginalization, we only focus on, let's say, jobs, education, health. But if you look at even the environmental setting, it could be possible that the non-existence of the accurate data could also lead to some form of marginalization. For instance, wildlife conservation is something that people are really concerned about. And if you look at the wildlife uh, geographical dispensation, if you come to Ghana, the wildlife scenario here might be different from somewhere else. But if we don't have a lot of data from different regions, then it becomes very difficult to have AI systems that are really fair. And then some of the wildlife are very rare in some specific continents. So if we don't have a lot of data from other continents and regions, the algorithms that we design may be skewed towards certain populations. And also the dynamics within the environment is something that could greatly impact the algorithms that we create. And even the seasons. In Ghana, we have the dry season and then the wet season. In other places, we have summer, winter, autumn. And in each of these seasons, there are different characteristics around them. So if AI systems are not really looking into the various seasons in the various countries, then there could be an issue, or even predicting of natural disasters. So what could happen in an advanced country may be different from what could happen in Ghana. And there's a need for more data, even in other regions in Africa. So where do these biases occur? I know a lot of us are students. And even when you are not a computer scientist, there may be the tendency that you are doing something which will produce data that computer scientists or IT people can rely on, or you are collaborating with people to come up with solutions. So definitely this is something that should be helpful to you, or something that you should be concerned about. Remember, the data that we are feeding to the algorithms around is the same data that is leading to these issues of marginalization. So we are all concerned. So even in the data collection stages, there could be biases when there's no diversity. For instance, if you are looking at developing a system in relation to health, and we are focusing on only a certain climatic area, it may not be beneficial to the wider population. And then also historical data. Sometimes the data that already exists, it's something that may be skewed towards certain dimensions. And sometimes because of cost, we don't have much option but to just rely on what is already existing. So in the data collection stage, there can still be biases. And those of us who train machine learning models. So for some of you students, you may not be training machine learning models, but your work might generate some data which will be fed into these models that we are talking about. So even in the choice of algorithms, some of the algorithms could inadvertently learn from the biased data and also produce biased results. So it's more like a cycle. The data feeds into the algorithm provides results, and then the results may be biased. And even the evaluation criteria that we use. So performance metrics may not account for all factors such as the demographics, which may lead to incorrect assessments. So I've already mentioned the lack of diversity Sometimes it's due to cost. There's not too much money to be able to diversify the research to cover the various geographical regions that are needed. And then sometimes too, there's limited participation. You know how sometimes people can be, sometimes people just want to call into their shells. They really don't want to share information and then they don't want to share data. You realize that if you dig deeper, it could be due to some inherent cultural beliefs and practices. I know in certain parts of Africa, people really are concerned when it comes to giving out their images or even giving out their audio recordings because people believe in witchcraft and all sorts of things. And someone might think that, well, if I give you my image for a facial recognition algorithm, how sure am I that my image will not end up with, let's say, a juju? We call them juju men. So people who are into this witchcraft and other traditional beliefs. So they don't want to share because they feel they don't trust scientists enough to use the data for what is intended to do. So sometimes the marginalized groups may not be willing to give the needed data, or sometimes they don't have the opportunity to contribute. So there are always two sides to the story. Even when they contribute or they don't, there are times that these applications that come up are not free, so they can't pay for them, they can't use them. And once they can't use them, they can't judge. They can't tell whether this application is biased or this application does not serve us to the best of our ability. Remember, we need feedback to feed into the cycle to better the AI systems that we create. But if these marginalized groups don't have access to the applications that are created, how do they evaluate? How do they give feedback to ensure that we modify the applications? And then I've already mentioned that there are certain instances that have come out clearly that some of these AI systems that have been developed are geared towards certain dimensions. So people do not even want to use them because they already have that notion that, oh, this thing, if I use it, is not going to serve me to the best of my ability. So why should I use it? Because they feel that the system is already discriminatory. So just as I mentioned, it's a cycle. It's a cycle which is worrying. The data in the real world may have some biases if we don't take the necessary steps to collect them in the right way. So once the data is biased and we feed the data into the algorithm, definitely the algorithm is working with the data and it will produce results that are biased. And then the business data which is produced, of course, is what is going to be used or deployed in the various industries. So once we don't get the starting points right, there would always be complaints about bias and all of that. So now back to a very important discussion, representation versus centering. If you are representing something, what does it mean? If you are centering something, what does it also mean? So representation is like, okay, you come, you be here, you are part of it. So your data is in there. But if you are centering something, you are giving more focus, you are giving more emphasis to the person or to the object. So it's not enough to just represent, but we need to go a step further to center the people, involve them in the data collection, involve them in the creation of the AI models, and then the evaluation. So representation alone will not serve the needs of the people who are marginalized. There's a need to go beyond that and center their needs by involving them, by looking at the cultural sensitivities, by looking at the ethical constraints around the kind of research we are conducting, by getting them to be part of the research that is being conducted. When we center these marginalized communities, we can co-design the systems. So the key word here is co-design, so that at the end, the results that we get will be helpful and then useful to everyone. So what can we do? There's a lot that has gone on, a lot of marginalization news around. So what can we do? All is not lost. As students and as professionals, we have our role to play. So we can reach out to underserved communities in our quest to get them on board. So by giving them reskilling and then upskilling to help them to get to that level of AI utilization. So there should be literacy programs. There should be more of social media and traditional media coverage to help them to understand what is going on, how they can contribute to ethical research so that we can get the best of outcomes. And then it's very important, cultural sensitivity. There are some applications that may be fine in certain areas, but may be prohibited in certain cultures. So cultural sensitivity is something that needs to be incorporated. And I've already mentioned community involvement, getting them on board. So the whole idea is just to drive them along, drive them along. So as we move towards the end of the lecture, how can we identify some of the biases that already exist? So it should be through a combination of technical methods, human oversight, and then continuous monitoring. As we are humans, we cannot be perfect, but we can always monitor what we do to ensure that we stay on track. So there should be rigorous assessment of already existing data sets, the algorithms that we use, and all the elements that are in the AI system to identify potential sources of bias. So when we are collecting data, we have to make sure that we don't overly focus on certain groups and exclude the others. And where the data is skewed towards certain populations, we have to be mindful of data augmentation. Where possible, we have to try and get the data from the underrepresented scenarios to balance the data sets that we are dealing with. These days, we have machine learning models that will explain to you the rationale behind certain decisions. So model explainability tools like SHARP, which is sharply addictive explanations, or LIME, will help us to know why machine learning models are making certain decisions. So if the decisions that they are making are not in line with the domain knowledge, then it means that we need to readjust our model or maybe our data. So these explanations will help us to do accurate feature analysis to know which features the models are relying on. So if you come to, let's say, a certain continent, there are some features that should be critical in a machine learning model's decision. If you go to a different continent, those features may be less needed to be able to take a decision. So machine learning models that focus on explainability can help us to know the reasoning behind the models so that if there's a need for adjustments, we can do so easily. And then we also have bias testing frameworks. So I'll just mention them and then later you can just take a good look at them. We have AI Fairness 360 and then FairLearn. These are tools or frameworks that will help to test models or AI systems for biases. And then sometimes we should stress test the systems that we develop to be sure that they can handle uncommon scenarios. Sometimes when we develop applications and we are testing them beyond a certain limit, we tend to say, no, this is not within the scope. But sometimes we should stretch the limit and see how well our systems will perform. Of course, humans will always have to be in the loop. Humans will always have to be in the loop. We need experts to always review and analyze the models that are being generated to give feedback when modifications were necessary. And then crowdsourcing sometimes let people test the models that we have developed, if possible, and give feedback for modification. And then we can benchmark and compare the models to already existing data sets and applications to see how well they perform, and keep validating and validating until we get the best of systems that will serve our marginalized communities. And as I mentioned, there's a need for constant monitoring. So when we develop systems, we should have mechanisms in place to monitor them and log and analyze the outputs over time to help us to know whether we are on track or not. And then ethics committees, which I know are within the various institutions and then research environments, are also available to shape how we conduct our research so that we don't leave the marginalized communities behind. And these committees have policies that they enforce. These days, there are some papers that you can't even publish if your work was not approved by a recognized ethical committee. So in the end, I would say that be the change in artificial intelligence, irrespective of the kind of research you are conducting, whether you are taking data, whether you are creating algorithms, whether you are evaluating the data or the algorithms, be the change. You have to challenge bias in a positive way. If you find something not right, you can point it out in a very positive way. So constructive critique is good. We should learn to collaborate. We can't be everywhere, so let's learn to collaborate. We should commit to lifelong learning. Every day, new models are coming up, new frameworks are coming up. If we don't learn, we'll stay behind. So let's learn to always update our knowledge. Let's be advocates for change, and let's seek diverse perspectives. So in conclusion, let's prioritize marginalized voices in AI design. Let's foster partnerships. So if you are a student, you can have student partners in various continents. That's why we are here. So through this series of lectures, you get to network with other people, and then you get to share perspectives. So you foster partnerships to ensure that AI reflects the needs of all, challenge existing biases in a constructive way, advocate for inclusive data practices. And as we do all these, we will contribute towards centering marginalized voices, and it will move towards AI that truly serves everyone. So I'm on LinkedIn. If you like to connect, you can do so. I'm sure that students, as I said, partnerships. So you can also connect to one another on LinkedIn so that the community can grow, and then we can learn to appreciate diverse perspectives. So on this note, I would like to end the presentation. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Rosemary. I wanted to ask if you're able to copy and paste your link in the chat
Okay.
so it's easier for people.
Okay.
And as Dr. Rosemary said, if anybody else would like to also share their LinkedIn or their social media, this is a lovely opportunity to get to meet other attendees and network with each other. I think we have Ebenezer has a question, and then I'm wondering if we can just do the post quiz after Ebenezer's question to give everybody more time to reflect, and then we'll get back to questions if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I think that is amazing.
Awesome. So Ebenezer, do you quickly want to ask your question?
All right, thank you very much. Please, am I audible?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Doctor. This was a very nice presentation, and I really enjoyed it. I have a question pertaining to the biasness when it comes to the data we use in training the AI. If the data that you are going to use to train the AI can lead to the model being biased, however, the data is factual, what do you do in that case? Let me try to give an example. In trying to train an AI model to be able to drive vehicles, self-driving vehicles, You're looking at the locality, let's say for a specific region, you're looking at how the people drive within the locality. Now you pick this data, you feed it with the AI, and then the AI drives like people. However, when you look at the way the people drive, it could lead to bad behavior when it comes to driving. In this instance, if you try to remove the biasness within the AI, the people will feel the AI does not drive their vehicle the way they want it to be driven, thereby rejecting it. In an instance where the data to be used are factual, however, could lead to biasness in the output of the algorithm. What can you do? Thank you.
Okay, Ebenezer, that's a very interesting question. So if the data is factual, then it becomes very difficult to say that it's biased, unless maybe you would want to massage the data to be able to represent a certain scenario. So, for instance, as you were saying, if you look at the way people are driving, let's say in certain areas, in some communities, it may be different from how people are driving in more residential areas. So in that instance, you should have huge volumes of data. So data that represents different scenarios so that the models will adapt to the appropriate environment. So if you have a model working for a scenario where the driving is quite disorganized or in a way not streamlined, then it may not perform well when it comes to an environment where everything is much more orderly and everything goes on smoothly. So just as we say, there are two sides to every story. Unless you want the system to be used only in that setting, then you can take data within that setting. But we want models that are generalized, that can be applicable to other scenarios. So that means that we will still have to get more data to represent the other side of the story so that when it comes to real world implementation, the model can decide appropriately how to behave.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're just going to jump to our quiz. And in the meantime, please join the quiz. And if you have more questions, just put them in the chat and we will give everybody an opportunity. So we have another short quiz at the end. So again, I will give you 2 minutes to scan the code, make up a username, and join and participate. And I thought I would also share a little plug in the meantime. If you're participating in our AI for GHI challenge, our theme is how we can develop responsible AI solutions to create more climate resilient health systems. And so there were a lot of points in Dr. Rosemary's talk today that are highly relevant to the competition. So I encourage you to go back. I'm going to post a recording after, and if you've taken notes, these are some points that you can also include in your proposals. Okay, 30 more seconds. We're having a lot more participants this time, which is good.
A lot more participants than the pre-lecture quiz.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Player limit reached, which is awesome. I didn't know there was a limit. So something new. Okay, let's start. Is my screen sharing?
Yes.
Okay,
The
awesome.
first question is, a successful AI project for marginalizing communities result in higher cost, increased exclusivity, equitability, or more complexity? Okay, the right answer is equitability.
And Dr. Rosemary, if at any point you'd like to share additional information, because I do see there's a little bit of a split between the two options and provide clarification, that'll be awesome too. Should we go
Okay.
to the next one? Okay, I'll go to the next one here. All right, we have Breno in the lead. What is a common issue with AI in marginalized communities? Is it overfunding, bias and exclusion, excess data, or all of the above?
What do you think, Mahak?
What do I think? Let's see. I think it's oh, that's awesome. So vast majority is
Yes,
bias and exclusion. Awesome.
Prina still in the lead. Future AI products for marginalized groups should what? Focus on standard solutions, avoid community input, adapt to evolving needs, or minimize the futures. Oh,
Almost majority. Awesome. So it is
yes.
adapt to evolving needs.
Last question. Prina still in the lead.
It's holding first place.
Yeah. What can happen if an AI system is turned on biased data? It will become faster at processing information. It might make unfair or incorrect decisions. It will improve its own programming. It will become more creative. Mhm. Okay,
So
the majority answer right.
it might make unfair or incorrect decisions.
Correct
Okay,
decisions. Yes.
time for our podium. Milagros. Oh, again, pre and post. Awesome. David in second
David
place.
and Bruno.
Breno, awesome. Okay, so and Dr. Pearl and Jerome are our runner-ups. Amazing job, everyone. You've done really well. So
So,
let's
So
go back.
I think I would like to briefly comment on the inclusion and then exclusion.
yeah.
So we are looking at a situation where there's inclusivity. So we want the people to be included in what we are doing. We want to carry them along. We don't want to exclude them. If we exclude them, then the things that we develop, the AI models, will not help them. So we want it to be inclusive. Inclusivity is what we are looking for. Yeah, so maybe that will clarify that question. But I think that my students and my researchers here and my online audience are good. They really did well with the quiz, so let me give them a round of applause.
So, thank you, Dr. Rosemary, for that insightful presentation. As you have covered many fascinating points today beyond your presentation about centering marginalized voices in AI design. So, we are starting the Q&A session now. And I'll be collecting the questions from you after you writing them into the chat, or if you want, you can unmute your mic and speak up. So,
Just give everybody a minute. But it was a very clear presentation, which is awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a lot of thank yous in the chat. So I think
yes,
we don't
the
have
chat.
questions, but we have a lot of gratitude and
Many thanks.
appreciation. And we have hit exactly 1 hour. So I think we're good to conclude for today. Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
Dr.
Dr.
Rosemary.
Rosemary.
You're welcome. It's been an exciting time. Thanks to all who took time to join us. And I hope that the next sessions will even be more insightful.
Awesome. So I'm going to share the LinkedIn links that I have and everything. I'll put it in a document and I'll share it with everybody after the meeting so we don't lose what we've started here, this movement and this networking, okay? Oh, I see Olivia has a hand up.
Olivia.
Hello. Thank you so much, Dr. Rosemary, for such an impressive presentation. Please, I would like to ask, is it possible you can share your slides with us?
Okay. I think that can be possible. Maha, what do you think?
Yes. So I think the best way to do this is maybe if you share them with me, I will look at all the Zoom attendees, we'll get their contact information, and I'll put the slides and all the links that we've gathered here so far.
Okay, that's right. And I'm sure the recording is going to be on YouTube as well, right?
Yes, yes. Once it's processed, we will upload it right away. And the hope is we can even like turn this into a nice course with all the quizzes and everything for people to join at a later time. So thank you so much, Olivia, for that question. And with that, I would like to conclude this meeting. It has been an amazing past hour where we've not only learned about differences between terms like representing and centralizing, but also what are the steps that we can take, because a lot of us are students and these are ideas and mindsets that we want to develop as we become researchers, data scientists, healthcare professionals, and so on, because we are going to be like the next generation. And so we want to be able to be more inclusive and have and centralize those voices, as Dr. Rosemary shared in her talk. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And with that, I would like to conclude this month's lecture. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.